Well, good Monday morning to everyone. Welcome back. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and this is what I call my morning musings. Having my second or third cup of coffee here. We're currently doing a thematic study of the great book of Zechariah. And, you know, in about 26 previous installments, we've gone through the book thematically. And one of the things that we're doing now is examining the direct correlation between the book of Zechariah, the last couple of chapters, and the book of 1 Peter. The parallels here are absolutely incredible. And they are very, very important for us to understand and to see and to apply. Zechariah speaks so very often of in that day, as I've shared with you on previous occasions. In that day is the day when Messiah would be betrayed. In that day is the day in which they would kill Messiah. Well, Peter spoke of the sufferings of Christ foretold by the Old Testament prophets. As we've noted, yes, Isaiah 53, Daniel 9, other prophets and prophecies foretold the sufferings of Christ. But very clearly, Peter's not talking about a different suffering of Christ from that foretold by the other prophets. So we're on the same page here. Peter says that the Old Testament prophets spoke of not only the suffering of Christ, but the glory to follow. 1 Peter chapter 1, 10 through 12. Well, guess what? Zechariah foretold the suffering of Christ and the glory to follow, because in Zechariah chapter 14, and well, of course in Zechariah chapter 13, as we have already seen, the fountain shall be opened for the house of David, for the inhabitants of Jerusalem, for sin and for uncleanness. There's the glory to follow the suffering of Christ, but also the glory to follow this suffering of Christ is delineated in chapter 14 when it says, verse 8, in that day it shall be that living waters shall flow from Jerusalem. Did you notice that in that day reference? See, all of these in that day references are to the same identical period of time. And that time period is when Messiah would suffer, when Messiah would be cut off. In that day it shall be that the living waters shall flow from Jerusalem, half of them toward the eastern sea, half of them toward the western sea. In both summer and winter it shall occur, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day it shall be, the Lord is one, and His name is one. See, this is beautiful, beautiful language that describes the suffering of Messiah and the glory that would follow. Now remember, all of this is placed in that day. There is absolutely no justification for extrapolating one in that day reference to 2,000 years to a different in that day. There is simply no contextual justification. Only a preconceived, presuppositional theology that has this preconceived idea of what this living water might be or when it might come, as opposed to the betrayal of Messiah. Folks, we cannot allow ourselves to make that kind of unjustified insertions, eisegetical insertions into the text. We must allow the Bible to define its own terms, to define its own framework, to define its own time frame. And every one of these in that day references that speak of the glory to follow the suffering of Messiah confine it to that first century generation. The time in which 2/3 of the people would be cut off, the remnant would be saved. But all of this in the same in that day as when Messiah would be cut off. You see, in that day is a one-generational period of time. It's not 2,000 years. It's not suffering of Christ 2,000 years later, glory to follow. How far removed was the fountain of sin from the sufferings of Christ? Are we going to extrapolate 2,000 years from the suffering of Christ to the opening of the fountain? Well, if the opening of the fountain is inextricably tied temporally to the sufferings of Christ, then guess what? The river of life flowing from the throne is temporally connected to it as well. I developed that concept, the river of life flowing from the throne, in my book, Who is This Babylon? Go to my website, www.eschatology.org, BibleProphecy.com. Order Who is This Babylon? Mention that you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook. I'll refund your shipping. Save you $5. So, order the book. Thanks so much for joining me for this morning's Morning Musings. We've got more on the beautiful correlation between Zechariah and 1 Peter. And you do not want to miss these correlations. We'll see you on the flip side. You have a great day.